Well, it's great to see you, Kenny.
You too.
This is the first episode for you or I just getting started. We have the fan page and we have
Okay.
Instagram videos, and I chose you to be the first guest,
I
and I'm
appreciate
honored
that.
to have you. And
Oh,
I have a couple of surprises for you.
oh boy.
But how's everything going? I mean, we've known each other for a long time.
Long time. Everything's well. Everything's well. I can't complain.
Yeah. Oh, great. Well, why don't we first start by having the audience get to know who Kenny Green is? And I have to admit that when I started doing this PowerPoint yesterday, I forgot how much you did.
I
So
did a little bit.
yeah, so look at some of these numbers. 996 career rebounds, fourth all-time leader in rebounds, points 1724. Then it gets really good here. Your fourth all-time leading rebounder. This one I really like, and I'd like to talk about this tonight, is you led Rhode Island to the second round against Syracuse and won, and then to the Sweet 16. And before you fell to Duke by 1 point. You've also been Atlantic 10 Player of the Year. We haven't had that since then, I believe, and it's not an easy thing to do. This one is incredible. Led the nation in block shots one season with 124 and 328 blocks, most in one season. Now here, I don't know if you're aware of Keeney Blue, but it's a online forum. It's pretty tough, and they seem to love you here. Just the other day, they had a thread of the all-time starting five. I mean, and look at these numbers here. All-time blocks leader. Number one, Hassan gave you a little bit of a scare, but
he gave me a run for my money. I would, Scott, honestly, what I spoke to Hassan about, and even Surreal, Langevine, was like, records are made to be broken. And, I was really rooting for the two of those guys to break some of those records. They both came very, very, very close.
And then you have for the season 124 blocks. Look at all these single games. Kenny Green, Kenny Green, Kenny Green, Kenny Green, Kenny Green. And recently Rhode Island hired Todd Bozeman.
But what I remember of Todd, and what I can say was, I mean, he's a great guy. His record speaks for itself for what he's done in his coaching career. Very sound, very strong coach. And I think he's going to be a very good fit. From what I remember, Todd's never been one to kind of hold his tongue. And he's very vocal. And I think
Todd was never satisfied. Can you tell me a little bit about your experience in Europe? I know you've played well, and also the CBA, and then finally coaching. I think it would be interesting for the fans to hear about this.
Well, when I left school, didn't get drafted, but got picked up by the San Antonio Spurs for their summer camp. Was with them down in LA in the summer camp. Was actually having a very good summer camp. First 3 games, I averaged maybe 20-something points. I was a double-double. And at that time, Larry Brown was the coach. Larry and I both had the same agent. I think we were playing Miami in the summer league, and a team from Milan, Italy was there. And they saw me. And at that time, the coach for that team was Mike D'Antoni. And I went back to my room after the game, and my agent called me and said, we have an offer. And I'm thinking of San Antonio. I'm like, great, every kid's dream. I mean, and it's just common sense. 99% of basketball players who play college basketball, their dream is to play in the NBA. So before he even said it was a team from Italy, I got a little hyped. I was like, yeah, I did what I wanted to do, and somebody saw me, and they recognized that I was able to play. And then he says it's a team from Italy, and he explained to me who they were. He explained to me who the coach was, and actually the other American there was Bob McAdoo.
Wow.
So and knowing who Bob McAdoo was, and he was at the end of his career, but still knowing who Bob McAdoo was and what he had accomplished and what he had done, it was easier for me to say yes, because I'm like, okay, so I can go somewhere and play with an NBA great, even though he's at the end of his career. But the knowledge that I can learn from this guy could only help me in the long run. So I told him, I said, without a doubt, let's go. Never dreamed of going overseas, never even thought about going overseas. I mean, my main focus was just boom, staying in, getting into the league and stuff like that. But once I got there, it was a great experience, even though I only played 5 games. Coach D'Antoni, the same system that he had with Houston, the same system that he had with Phoenix, it was the same system that he had over there. It was just up and down the floor, running and gunning. He wanted a 5-man who could get up the floor, rebound the ball. Basically, what Clint Capella was doing for him at Houston, pick and rolls, coming off pick and rolls, catching alley-oops, stuff like that. And for the first 5 games, it was great, but I was getting beat up by big men because I was playing the 5 position. So I was getting beat up defensively. And it was really, in 5 games, I mean, the toll that it took on me, I was like, I can't do this. So I called my agent. I said, listen, it's a great situation. It's great for me, but I said, I just can't do this. I said, I'm not going to last a full season here. So, we negotiated, got out of the contract, and I came back home and played in the CBA. CBA was, it was interesting, to say the least. It was fun.
Yeah.
It's the CBA at that time was just basically whoever got the ball 1-on-1. You go, it was all about you individually. So it was fun.
We have a mutual friend in Brendan Malone, and I'm sure you still keep in touch with him, and he speaks highly of you. How was it? Have you been talking to him about his son? And his son used to practice on the court while we were playing.
And I remember, I remember that. And the best story that I have about Brendan was when he was recruiting me. My senior year in high school, we had a player that All-American, McDonald's All-American. So everybody was coming to see this guy play. And he actually came down with his wife, Maureen, to one of our games in high school. And they came down to see, the other kid play. And she actually, on the way home, told Brendan, I like the big guy with the glasses. He rebounds with 2 hands. He's physical. And the kid just plays hard all the whole game. And he was like, she told me that she told him, never mind the other kid. All he wants to do is shoot the ball. I like this other kid. He wants to do all the dirty work. And that's how they started recruiting me, because of Maureen. So, I owe a debt, and I told her this before, I owed her a debt of gratitude just because being a coach's wife, and I'm sure that, she's been with him, and she was with him on many recruiting trips and stuff like that. And she got to know the game. She got to know what to look for in players. And honestly, I think that if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't have ended up at Rhode Island.
Understand. I don't know if this is an urban myth or legend, where when Brendan went to New York, and Penders came in, I guess that was your senior year or junior year?
No, that was my sophomore year.
Sophomore year. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Maureen still had the house in the Kingston area. And I heard that the players still went to that house. Even though Brendan was gone, it was just such a family atmosphere as Brendan is coach. And, talk about an outspoken coach. And don't you think? When he left for New York, Maureen and the kids were still in Rhode Island. And knowing that another coach was coming in, and basically her tenure there being the dead mother for the players was over, but she didn't see it that way. The summer that he left and we knew a new coach was coming in and she was there, she still had us at her house overnight. We were literally staying at her house for
I think we were there for 3 weeks. Myself, Bonzi, John Evans. I think we were there for 3 weeks, just hanging out with her and the kids. I mean, it was unbelievable. Coach Malone was in your face. You know, we're going to be a defensive team. We're going to lock everybody down, and this is how we're going to do it. And Coach Pennis was, let's get the, as long as we score more points than another team, we're going to win. So they were two totally different coaches, but in the same, they were coaches who really cared about their players.
Yeah. Do you remember the time in practice you had a little altercation with a player from Ohio? I won't mention names. To this day, I've never spoken about that. And I remember hearing Brendan say, let them go. I want to see some fight on this.
You know what?
Remember that?
I heard it all. I remember him saying, let them go. Don't nobody jump in. Let it go. Let it happen. And we were like, well, what's going on? That's not normal.
Yeah.
You know, but that's how he was. He was the guy who he wanted the grit out of every player. He wanted, you know, he was like, we're going to win every 50-50 ball. If you don't win a 50-50 ball, you're going to sit down. I don't care if you miss 50 layups. I don't care if you miss a defensive assignment. But if you lose a 50-50 ball, you're going to sit down. So, I mean, he was that guy that, you know, we're just going to get after it. We're going to get after it on the defensive end of the floor. We're going to be tougher than everybody that we play. I don't care how much better they are. We're just going to be tougher. And that's how we're going to stay in games. And that's just who he was as a coach.
Yeah. You're playing at Rhode Island. You're playing injured to some extent for all 4 years. Is that correct? And you still produced the numbers that you did. What was the basis of your injury? Was it a knee injury or what?
Yeah. My senior year in high school, I literally snapped my kneecap in half. And from what the doctors told me, because I had a growth spurt from my junior year to my senior year of 6 inches in the summer. So from the time that I got out of school to the time we started school again, I grew 6 inches. So all my bones and everything else just didn't catch up. So I think it was probably my third practice, and went up for a rebound, came down, kneecap split right in half. So it became chronic where between bone spurs always, you know, it became that it was just bone on bone in there. So, you know, a lot of bone spurs coming off, and they would get, basically what they would say was the bone spurs would get locked into the joints. And so they always had to go in and alleviate that and stuff like that. So, I mean, I went through 7 surgeries. I did 5. I had 5 surgeries while I was in school. Yeah.
Wow. Do you ever think without that, what you could have been? I mean, the sky's the limit. You could have been a star in the NBA with the talent that you had, and the way you were able to play with a severe injury like that for 4 years. The numbers you produced was amazing, and the lack of going to every practice, you had a disability with that, but it didn't show up in your game. And you see that time and time again when players are missing practices or coming back from injuries. It takes them a few games. To me, you never missed a step. I didn't know how you did that. What was your secret?
You know, Scott, in my mind, when I was going through all that, I always said that I wish I could practice more, because I always felt that if I was able to practice more, I could actually refine my game even more. But it just wasn't possible. So I spent a lot of time in the pool. I spent a lot of time on a stationary bike just to keep, you know, my physical, just to keep my wind up and stuff like that. I would sneak in the gym sometimes and just shoot by myself just so I can get some shooting in, because if we went where we played a game on Monday and then whether we were home or away, and we had practice on Tuesday and Wednesday before a Thursday game, I wouldn't practice Tuesday and Wednesday. So I always felt that I had to do something. I had to get some shooting in, something. And so I would sneak in the gym every now and then just to get shots up and stuff like that. You know, and, you know, most of the guys knew, because they would be like, where you going? It's 8 o'clock at night. I'm like, I'm going down to the gym, and they're like, well, we just got out of practice 2 hours ago. We're not going back. I'm like, yeah, I know, but I need to. So, I mean, I always thought about what if I had two good knees, what could have been. But then I got to the point to say to myself, this is the hand that I was dealt, and I did with it the best that I could. And so I was always pleased with that. I never downed myself for not being able and not getting to that next step as far as the NBA, whatever else. But I would just say to myself, it was the hand that I dealt, and I did the best with it that I could.
It shows that. Now, who concocted that type of practice schedule? It's almost like early days of load management to an extreme. Was that Penders? I mean, he's innovator. If that was, then he should get some credit for load management. Was it his idea?
Yeah, it really was. Yes,
and it worked. What did you think when he told you that was his plan? Were you thinking, this is crazy, I can't do that?
Honestly, that's the best word to use. I thought, this guy is crazy. What am I supposed to do if I'm not practicing? I mean, and we all know that if you play the game, you know that when you practice with your teammates and stuff like that, then you guys come to understand each other so much better. And I always thought that if I'm not practicing, how are they going to know, where I need to be on the floor, what I'm good at doing, whatever it may be. But just instinctively, and I put it this way, especially when you had two guards like Tommy Garrick and Silk Owens, I mean, they just made life for everybody so much easier. I'm like, honestly, those two guys just made it so easy for everybody else that it became easy playing with them, and it became easy not practicing because they literally took so much of the stress off everybody else because they were just so good that it became easy for the rest of us.
Well, talking about Tommy Garrick, he was a state favorite in Rhode Island and wanted to play at Providence. And I saw him his freshman year. He's a phenomenal athlete, but the metamorphosis
unbelievable
from when Penders came in, I just could not believe that. I was in out of state, and I was watching, and I'm like, how is this happening? And he just kept getting better and better. What was that? Can you explain, such a growth?
Well, that was Coach Penders understanding the talent that he had and the players that he had. And he literally just let us go. And, we had structure, but it was to the point where he left everything up to the two guards. He was like, you guys, and he legitimately said it. It was the first practice of that 88 season that we went to the Sweet 16. He literally said, I want to score 100 points a game. And so everybody's looking at each other like, well, what about the defensive part of it? He's like, no. If we score 100 points a game, we're going to outscore everybody. And that was his mentality. He was like, just go. I need you guys up and down the floor. That practice, he said, we're not called the running Rams for nothing. I remember that, and I said, that's something that I will never forget, that this guy came out his mouth and said, we're not called the running Rams for nothing, and that's what we're going to do.
Well, you were 3 short against Syracuse, and you still won. You put in 97 points, I believe. It was 97-24. So,
yeah.
And that's not to say that your defense wasn't good. It just was the pace that you play. How would you rate the defense on those storied teams? Even with
you know what? I thought we were a very good defensive team. I mean, when we needed to lock somebody down, we were able to do that. I mean, and we were so much in sync with each other when we were on the floor that it was easy. The Syracuse game, I'll say, we knew, hey, okay, it's the storied team, Syracuse. Everybody knew Syracuse. They knew who they had, with Rhody Cycling, with Garrick. So we were like, well, it's going to be an uphill battle for us. But the thing about it, we had the mentality that we weren't scared to play anybody, that we knew that we can play with everybody and anybody that we played against. We honestly weren't worried about who we were playing. We always had it in our mind, they need to worry about us. And that's how we played.
And I heard a rumor, maybe I heard it from you. You had a great YouTube video interview years back. There was a lot of trash talking Syracuse's way against Rhode Island. I think there was a foregone conclusion that they won the game before they stepped on the court, and they had a lot to say to you guys. What happened there?
Well, I knew Garrick Coleman from Summers. We would play together in New York. We would play against each other in New York, so we knew each other. So when we were going to play each other, and he saw me, he was like, "Oh, we don't even know what Rhode Island is." And I'm like, "All right, Dick." I'm like, "All right, Dick. I know you're going to be the number one pick. Blah 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 blah." I was like, "Okay, we got something in store for you," and it was just for probably the first 2 minutes of the game. Even on the floor, they were talking. But after that first 5 minutes of the game, they understood that we were for real, and they were going to be in for a game. When you have a coach, you have a coach who has that much confidence, it's easy to follow suit. So, and that's exactly what we did. I mean, before every game, even when we found out who we were playing, and he basically was saying, "I don't care who we're playing. We're better than that team, and we're going to beat everybody that we play." And that was his mentality, that we're going to beat everybody that we play. And if we lost the game, it wasn't because that team was better than us. It was because our mistakes. So he just had it instilled in us that, if we do what we're supposed to do, we're supposed to win, regardless of what anybody else says.
The Duke game.
Honestly, they weren't even questionable calls. They were calls that just should not have been called. They were I think his first 2 fouls were phantom fouls. They understood who Tommy was, that at that point, because what he had done so far in the tournament, that he was our go-to guy. And it just seemed to us like, we're going to get him out of there and just see what they can do without him. But I remember distinctively, and we've talked about this before, that his first 2 fouls, they were phantom fouls. To beat a team with the caliber of players that they had, such as Duke, we needed everybody, especially Tommy, literally to play a 40-minute game, and it just didn't happen. Even though, it came down to literally the last shot for us to get past them, and it just shows what type of players and what type of team that we had, that even though one of our top guns didn't play as much as he normally would, that everybody else stepped up.
As far as your high school play, you said that you didn't get the recognition. Who were you recruited by? Was it Rhode Island and a few other places? Or it seems to me you were recruited by some decent teams.
Well, my first recruitment letter came from the University of Hartford, which was, kind of expected being in the state. Then my second recruitment letter actually came from Wake Forest. But I knew and I felt deep down in my heart that I wasn't an ACC player. I just didn't think that I was ready to play in the ACC at that time. But it was great to have a recruiting letter from them that they were really interested. I mean, my mom had talked to one of the assistant coaches twice on the telephone. They were actually ready to come up for a recruiting trip. Then Rhode Island got involved. And when Rhode Island got involved, that kind of solidified where I was going to go. I came up to Rhode Island, but before I came up to Rhode Island on a recruiting trip, my mother and my aunt actually came to Rhode Island. And it was to the point where I was told that's where I'm going to go to school. I mean, I was literally told that's where you're going to go to school.
Here we go, Kenny.
Okay.
Yesterday, it was Richmond taking out Indiana. Now Rhode Island with a chance to beat Syracuse, Billy.
Well, we've talked all day about the guards, and they've been outstanding in Owens and Garrick. But this fella, Kenny Green, right here, has been the difference in the ball game, and the fact that here with a turnaround jumper, he scores again inside. And what Tom Penders did so well is exploit the inability of Coleman and Cycli to handle him.
What are your plans? Do you have anything right now, or are you just chilling?
Well, Scott, I've been, honestly, I've been trying to break into the college field of coaching. It's tough. To be an assistant coach, which I've learned to be an assistant coach in college, is probably one of the toughest jobs to get. Not only does it have to do with your ability, but it has to do with a lot of it now is who you know and who knows you. I've talked to a lot of teams. I've been on a few interviews, and I'm not giving up. Because I feel that I have a lot to give, especially to a lot of these younger big men. And when I watch some of these big men, I'm like, if I had 10 minutes with this kid, if I had an hour with this kid, I would love for that to be my next step. I would love for it to be at Rhode Island. I absolutely love that school.
The feeling's mutual, Kenny. If you look on the board, and they're not afraid to say what's on their mind, they want you over there, especially with the big you've had. So.
And so I know what I'm doing. I know, especially when it comes to bigs, how to get bigs to produce night in and night out. So I'm just waiting for my chance. I know it's going to come. I know somebody, and I say somebody's going to take a chance, and I know somebody's going to take a chance. And when they do, I'm not going to let them down. So it's a matter of time.
Well, that's great, Kenny. We learned a lot today. I think what sticks in my mind is that Brendan Malone's wife was the lead in the recruitment about Kenny Green.
Before we end this, maybe some of the people in at URI will hear this. Only thing I wish for this school, and I said it when the first game that I came back that I saw, all I want is for the school to retire some of these guys' numbers. I think it's needed. I think it's going to benefit the program. And the only reason I say that is when you bring a recruit in, and that recruit has been to other schools, maybe big schools, and they look over the rafters and they see 3 jerseys retired. I said, any kid's going to say to himself, nobody else went to school here? No other player went to school here that they can retire their numbers? So I think that's something that's needed for this program and for the school. And I think when that's done, and it sounds really small, but when it's done, I think our chances of getting high-profile players coming out of high school is going to be a step forward.
I totally agree with you. I never thought of it that way. It also improves the fan experience at the game. And one quick question, who are you really excited about? I mean, the talent is there, as you said earlier. Is there one particular player that reminds you of someone in your days that is on the team now? I could think of a few, but I'd like to hear from you.
You know who I'm really excited about is the kid. He was a freshman last year, the 2 guard, Ishmael.
I knew you were going to say
that.
I knew you were going to say that.
He reminds me of Tommy. He reminds me of Tommy so much. Just the body, the way he plays. With a year under his belt, I think he's going to have a breakout season this year. But as long as he's used where he should be used at, if he's put out of position, I think it's going to hurt him. But he's going to be a perfect 2 guard for that program. If he's used as a point guard, I think it's going to hurt him. But if he's used as a 2 guard, I think the kid's going to do great things for the school and for the program.
Oh, that's great, Kenny. Good minds think alike. And that was the guy I was thinking of as well. But there are others, but he really does stand out. Well, I can't wait to put this up on YouTube. And I'm going to just tell people it's time for Kenny Green to be an assistant coach whether it's Rhode Island, Boston College, or Hartford. I don't know, but you have too much talent there, and I've seen too many players that have not benefited from the knowledge that you have. So let's cross our fingers and hope that this comes into fruition, as I'm starting to get a little bit antsy, and I'm sure you are too.
Oh, without a doubt.
Well, great, Kenny. Let's stay in touch. And
For sure,
always
Scott.
great to talk to you, and we'll go from there. But sounds
I appreciate
great.
you.
Doing really
I
well.
appreciate you. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Good talking to you, Scott.
Yes.